There's this whole argument that you can shoot anything on a cell phone, but if you were to compare the two cameras, one is the FX3 and one is my iPhone 11, they both look different. But what about something like an FX3 or an A7S III versus an Arri Amira? These cameras are actually closer than you think. And this also begs the question, do you need a full team that, let's say, a big cinema camera and cinema package come with, or can you shoot things more independently? We're starting this video with a comparison. One is a $40,000 setup with an entire production team, and then the other setup is me on my own with my Sony A7S and a gimbal with our lead actor. And I want to be able to see if you can tell the difference in production value between the two setups. One of the things I've always wondered is, does a crew matter anymore? Back in the day, obviously it made sense because you were working with much bigger camera gear, you have much larger setups, but now cameras are way more compact. Fellow filmmaking friend Chris Howe does a great comparison between having a massive camera crew setup with a Steadicam person and a follow focus versus a gimbal, and I'd argue they don't look as different as you would think. With the setup for our latest short film, Clementine, we kind of put this style of filmmaking up to the challenge. For 3 days, I had an entire production crew and a team to help me shoot this film, but for our pickup day and pickup insert shots, it was just myself and our lead actor. And those two had to weave in seamlessly, and if they didn't, the movie would have kind of failed. But fortunately, after screening the movie at multiple festivals and showing it in front of a lot of people, no one can really tell the difference between our one-man band versus our full production team. And now I'll kind of reveal the difference between those two setups and see if you got it right. So the first setup is with a full production crew and a team, and our second one is shooting it solo. The scene with the bigger crew was actually more of a minimal setup. There's not a lot going on, yet the scene with the most camera movement and action was the smaller team. So this begs the question, do you need a big crew to make a good movie? Well, before we kind of get to the answer of that, you need to know what not having a crew removes from your film. The first thing to go when you're shooting something on your own is usually sound. A lot of the time I'll go, well, I'll record it with ADR, we'll fix it in post, or we'll do sound design with this. But one of the major things that makes a film feel authentic is obviously that clean audio. So for some of the camera setups, I did have my microphone on camera, and we actually just used my little Rode video mic for certain moves. But for scenes where there was extensive dialogue and I didn't have a sound person, we recorded it with ADR. So meaning Jackie, our lead actor, had a microphone and re-recorded her lines, which most movies do use this, and ADR and replaced audio is very common in film, but it removes a sense of authenticity within your scene. If you watch a scene with ADR, especially in the independent space, you can usually tell what lines were done in post and what lines were done on set. That's because the actor just doesn't feel as authentic.
I don't know.
Especially in this setup where Jackie's talking through the glass, I had to get her to listen to her audio through the door and then re-record over that. So it was even harder to kind of get her to line up her dialogue.
The home is secured.
It's fine. Unsecure the home.
I'm afraid I can't. Parental controls are enabled.
You can't just lock me in here. What happens if they don't come back?
Your smart home is designed to be self-sustainable for 635 days in perimeter sensor detected. Front entrance, please confirm.
So audio is a huge thing that we stripped out. The second one is getting a sharp shot. A lot of the times when you're viewing on a tiny monitor and operating everything by yourself, nailed focus is kind of the second thing to go after audio. Our lenses that we were shooting on, I wasn't using manual focus. I was using photography lenses with autofocus. When things brush by the camera or the camera's kind of drifting through the frame, it's gonna hunt for its focus, which is kind of the first sign of a cheap setup. But focused in sound are things that you can perfect on a solo setup. You could do kind of something more minimum where you have your microphone plugged in on your camera, or you get your actor to wear a lav, and you're able to actually get away with nice clean audio and a sharp shot. Or if you do a kind of a lock off, you can do manual focus and kind of nail it. But even with a crew and a big setup, you can also get a soft looking shot and bad audio. So this still begs the question, does a crew matter? Yes, I think having a crew and operating with collaborators can really take your project to the next level. Another huge thing you're sacrificing is lighting. Now, while I feel like I can nail camera movement on my own, whether it's a static shot or a slow gimbal move, as soon as lighting gets involved, I'm sort of out of my comfort zone. And so having a cinematographer like Nick Pilecki to do more of these complicated lighting setups was so beneficial to the project. If you notice, the stuff that I shot was either stuff by a window or stuff outside. That was because I did not have the confidence to light it myself. So when you're removing another team member like a cinematographer or a gaffer or an AC, you're removing the availability to light things, especially in a tight timeline. Now, if you are shooting something by yourself, my biggest recommendation is either sharpen up your lighting capabilities and have a minimal, nimble setup that you don't need an assistant to lift and set up stands, or shoot exteriors with some sort of soft diffusion nearby. Now let's circle back. Crew or no crew, can you get away with things on your own, or do you need to have a big team? No longer do you need big film reels and massive cameras in order to capture what you need to capture. You can shoot cinematic movies on a Sony a7S Mark III that look comparable to an Arri Amira and can get away with it much more effectively than it ever has been able to do so. But doing ambitious setups with lots of dialogue, sound design, audio, dynamic lighting, having set shifts, location moves, and heavy acting becomes increasingly more difficult when you are the person doing all of those things. When I was operating the camera shooting these scenes, I could not focus on blocking, lighting, or actors' performance. The first thing to get thrown out of the window after sound is good acting, and if there's something that makes a movie look bad, it's bad sound and bad acting. So you can make a movie on your own, and you can get it to look comparable to that of a high quality big crew setup, but the sacrifices that go along the way can really make or break a film. Another thing to be cognizant of is budget differences. Working with a full crew on Clementine cost us $8,000, which is actually not a lot of money when it comes to making a short film. Typical short films go up to around $25,000 as a starting point, but because we got a lot of favors and I begged, borrowed, and stole, we were able to do this on this budget. Versus if you do it on your own, you're not having to hire a first AC, a gaffer, cinematographer, production designer, and all these other things in between. You just have your solo setup. So you're looking at a $0 setup with your gear versus a $8,000 setup plus. So if you do have to make a movie on your own or with a minimal crew, you can do so. But I would recommend stripping down the expectation of camera movement, lighting setups, and even performance from your actor. If you can either work with a really good actor where you don't have to give them a lot of direction, like our short film, The Statement, where I got to work with an incredible Hollywood actor, or you have less dialogue and less performance expectation, like what we did with our short film, I Speak With No Voice, where there was no dialogue, then you can really focus in on just operating camera or just doing the technical, where it starts to become overwhelming and therefore you lose your presentness on set. So to conclude this video, making Clementine was the effort of doing one-man band setups in full crews. I actually don't think we could have achieved what we achieved without the blend of both. And having both in your back pocket can be very valuable. But I highly recommend work with what you have and strive to achieve what you look up to, but don't stop at what you have. Start there and see where you can go. Far too many filmmakers don't get their project off the ground because they sort of procrastinate on all the things they wish they had or didn't have or all of that stuff. But think about what are the limitations that you have and how can you leverage your limitations in order to accelerate your career. If you liked this video and want to tune into more, I sound like a broken record like every other YouTuber on the internet, but you can actually hit subscribe. It really helps. Comment and share. It would be super beneficial for this channel and it would help a whole lot. So thank you for all your support. Thanks for watching to the end, and I love you guys very much.